Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Hawkeye Sidekick hurling podcast with your host Mark Kennedy, joined again this week by Ruairi Walsh, and delighted to have James Mulcare back on the podcast. Lads, how are things?
Very good, Mark.
All good, Mark, yeah. How's yourself?
All good. Kieran's off this week. He'll be back next week with a vengeance on the All Ireland Senior Championship final preview. I suppose, guys, we'll get straight into it. The All Ireland semi-final reflections, I suppose. We'll start with Saturday. Clare Kilkenny, I suppose. Ruairi, wasn't looking good for Clare at half time, but I have the word defiant down with this Clare performance in the second half. Came up trumps. Get your reaction to that 2-point win.
Yeah, you have to be impressed with the character they showed second half. Like it's not even their whole season, their whole last 3 seasons were building up to this one half of hurling. They had been way off it in the first half, and look, they galvanised themselves and produced a huge performance, particularly last quarter. They started second half very well, and as we know, Kilkenny got that sucker punch for goal. Quilligan's mistake, and look, I've been harsh on him in previous podcasts, but if it wasn't for Quilligan, we wouldn't have been within touching distance at halftime. He pulled off some magnificent saves in the first half. Look, he was probably due one error, and no one is complaining about him based on what he did in the first half. But anyway, that was a real sucker punch, and for Clare to take that and respond again, considering what happened last year, a similar type goal in a similar part of the match. But this year, you just got that sense coming down the stretch that Clare were not going to, give this one up. And in fairness, the likes of Kelly, who've been really quiet, came alive in the last quarter. Ryan Taylor, when he came in, the energy he brought, his first game in 12 months, and even Shane O'Donnell, who wasn't at his best, still won some important ball there, set up some scores and brought other players into it. And the half-back line, who in the first half, David McInerney, probably was one of the few backs to come out with credit, and Adam Hogan, of course, but the half-back line really stood up in that last 15 minutes. And, they were like a wall there. Kilkenny just could not win a long puck out. And it was a bit of deja vu from the All-Ireland final last year from a Kilkenny point of view. But defiant is the right word, Mark, because they did show defiance and they got the job done. And this was a real kind of, a real stumbling block for Clare. Kilkenny had been in the semi-finals. And we mentioned last week as well with the league final of any beer. And I think, just the confidence it gets to beat Kilkenny in a big match. If they had lost that league final, you'd have been talking 3 big games in the space of, 2 years. So just mentally, I think every small thing matters, I think. And but yet, look, the way they finish it, you have to be happy. And Clare just delighted now to finally be in a final after, knocking on the door for the last few years.
Absolutely. James, get you in there. I suppose what stood out for you?
Well, I suppose really the first half, how poor Clare were really to get to the pitch of the game. As Rory said, and I think it's the team for the weekend actually are the goalkeepers, and for the 2 winning teams are 2 goalkeepers that are much maligned or have been much maligned before, but only for the 2 of them, neither side would be in the final looking ahead. But Clare just didn't get going. Kilkenny, they could have been out of sight by half time. Quilligan kept them in it. I thought Blanchfield and Carey were, they were dominating for Kilkenny, and Clare just, I heard Lohan saying at half time that he could have taken off 6 or 7 players, and that's probably true. But then equally, I was very, very surprised by how flat Kilkenny, as good and all as Clare were to get back into it, I couldn't see a way that Clare were clawing this back without getting a goal, particularly then with the second goal, and Kilkenny's second goal went in, but Kilkenny just died to death. I thought they never got going. They seemed to panic a little bit, and they seemed to go. I thought they started going for goals very early with their points available to take for them, and they just never got going. Yeah, Clare took over, and once they once Taylor came on, as Rory said, he gave a right energy to Clare, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Cork and Clare semi-final in 2005, where you couldn't see a way back in. And just slowly, but surely, they started chipping away. And Kilkenny had no answer. It was, for a team that you'd say you'd rely on, is in, I've heard a lot of analysts would say that they trust Kilkenny, that they generally turn up. But that's 2 or 3 performances in big games in Croke Park now where they've fallen away in the second half, and it's the same again on Saturday.
I suppose when I was looking at this Kilkenny performance, middle third, as James said, were dominant. Keane Kenny, Paddy Deegan had contributed 3 points at half time. suppose from your perspective, Rory, I mean, this Clare middle third second half performance was vastly improved, but does it raise question marks here about Kilkenny and their composure that we've lauded most of the year here?
Yeah, like Kilkenny in particular was getting to the breaks in the first half, and just second half, like the change at Ryan Taylor, Clare started to win all those breaks. Even the long puckouts that weren't being won directly, Clare just seemed to be, getting on the ball first and started to win rucks, which Kilkenny were doing the first half. For a finish like Kilkenny was completely out of it last quarter, and it was interesting, like with Kilkenny, that 13 of that team were the team that played in Cody's last match in charge, and they brought on Fogarty and Walter Walsh. So for a finish, 15 of the players were the 15. Like, Link hasn't really found anyone. And we know we were talking about Owen Wall earlier in the championship. You'd wonder, like, just they needed, I think, something new, something different that Clare didn't know about. And in the past, Kilkenny have been able to pull kind of rabbits out of hats with kind of a player that people weren't familiar with outside of the counties come in and score 1-3, something like that. But that just didn't happen. It's kind of the same faces. And we mentioned this at the start of the year. There's a bit of a merry-go-round, like with you've Mullen, Cody, TJ, and then the other three, John Donnelly, I suppose, as a place. But then the other guys are all kind of tried and can't nail down a place. And it's kind of come back to haunt them in the end that they just haven't been able to get a consistent six forwards there. Because, look, it's kind of if you can hold Mullen and Cody, you hold Kilkenny. And so it proved like Mullen was very well marshalled in the game, and Adam Hogan had some game. I know Cody got an unbelievable goal, just the skill to the tennis strike, as people are calling it, but Wimbledon on. Adam Hogan, like, other than that, I thought he was outstanding, and to dismantle, their main forward and main scoring threat like that was going to give Clare a right chance, and so it proved. So yeah, Kilkenny just they're going to have to find more forwards, like, and it's a strange thing over the years. We always associated Kilkenny with put out any six forwards, but that's not the case at the moment. Just the fact, like, I suppose Billy Drennan, these boys kind of got plenty of time in the league, and none of them filled Ling with enough confidence to give them the nod in big championship games. And just really, like, I suppose the last couple of years, like Richie Hogan came in last year and kind of gave Kilkenny a bit of a spark for a few minutes against Clare, won a couple of dodgy frees, let's say, that his reputation won for him, but at crucial stages. But look, they didn't have that this year, and it just looked when they went for Walter and Fogarty, it kind of looked like they were going for guys who have gone to the well plenty of times, and maybe they just needed a bit of youthful spark in there instead. But so from a Kilkenny point of view, lots of question marks. I think that they're in a difficult place. They need to find new talent, like, and for how well the half back line were in the first half, and Blanchfield marauding forward and Carey, like, who really sort of stuck that goal. In the second half, when it was the other way around, when Clare were starting to run at them, there just seemed to be gaps there, didn't there? And Clare seemed to be able to find space. And when Clare showed a bit of composure, they're able to work the ball to a man who was loose to get a score. And you just kind of felt the tide swinging Clare's way, and Kilkenny just didn't seem to have anything to stop it. And had the McCarthy goal gone in, let's say, in the second half, Clare could have been even further ahead for a finish. And I suppose you could say Kilkenny's goal in the second half was a bit of fortune to it as well. Now, saying that, speaking of fortune, I'm not going to deny what happened in the first half, but I'm just trying to find out how poor Kilkenny were in the second half. That, again, that 7-point swing could have been even higher. It could have been 10, 12 points of a swing, like, from half time.
It had reeks of last season's All Ireland hurling final about it for me, James. I mean, Limerick came out in the second half. I know it was an excellent performance, but I couldn't but feel that Kilkenny wilted and died, and particularly this last 12 minutes of this Clare game. I mean, Clare hitting the last six scores. Like, I mean, there wasn't
the last six attempts by Kilkenny were wides.
Yeah,
and they looked like composure is one thing that you would always say that Kilkenny have, and they don't generally react to things. And you saw Adam Hogan really got into Cody's head. I think there was one point, and it was at the first half or it was the second half, I can't remember, where Cody won a free. He went back to give it to Hogan, and it ended up actually getting overturned in the thrown ball, and said that was a real sign. That's like Kilkenny you don't normally see them getting involved in that kind of stuff, but they seemed rattled. I was very surprised in the second half. I thought some of their decision making was poor, questionable, and composure was gone, and they died a death, really. Just to be reeled in, by kind of point after point. No goal for Clare, and no, the last six shots they took wide, very, 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 very disappointed from a Kilkenny point of view, and a lot of question marks for Ling over the winter. But from a Clare point of view, that's to turn that around, as you said, Rory, third year in a row. It wasn't just this season on the line. It's the last 3 seasons. It did have similarities to last year when Clare were forcing their way back in, and then you have another Owen Murphy pulling off that great save, and you're thinking, here we go again. But no, Clare kicked on and deserved it. And as you said, like, they could have won by more. With that, like that goal was very lucky that they got it. It was a mistake from Quilligan. Other than that, 6 points in the second half, really. You know.
And just like, it's not just this one as well. Let's say last year's semi-final, Kilkenny did in a way collapse a bit in that semi-final as well last year, and it was a fortuitous goal. So that's 3 big games in a row really in Croke Park, where you could say both All Ireland semi-finals, like, they were lucky to get out of last year's one, then the final as well, as you said, Mark, and then this one as well. So it's definitely there's a trend here with Kilkenny. And just interesting, like, Clare were kind of slated for their performances in the last 2 semi-finals. You know, just thinking of Jackie Tyrrell for one, but yeah, he was there after the game saying Kilkenny died with their boots on, which I didn't think they did. And
no.
You know, if anything, like, it's nearly worse to kind of have a team coming back at you and not being able to stem the tide than starting poorly. And like I'd have said last year that Clare would have tried everything at Kilkenny, but yet came up short with the way they played in the second half. But it's just a kind of interesting dynamic the way guys look at games. But yeah, it's hard. But the only thing from a Kilkenny point of view is, like, they're going to be in the All Ireland series again next year. Like, it's just the way things are at the minute with the lopsidedness of the championship. So, like, they really, like, have to just 2 or 3 fines is what they need. You know, all they need. They're still only a game or 2 away from winning All Ireland. Like, that's the nature of it at the minute. So it's not all doom and gloom there, but if they come back out again with the same set of forwards in a way, like, they just have to get some new guys in there.
Were we overestimating their stock coming into the semi-final? Because they haven't really been great this year, bar the Leinster final, which was a no-show from Dublin. But apart from that, they have been fairly patchy. Yeah, you know, you were kind of basing your predictions coming in for the semi-final on the fact that, you know, what happened in the Leinster final, and that, you know, it's now the All Ireland series. You know, they knew they were going to come through Leinster, that they would show up. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're overestimating their stock at the moment. And as you said, Rory, that's 3 in a row now in Croke Park for them. It's difficult to see. You know, it's difficult to see what their approach is going to be for next year.
Rory, get you in terms of the Clare performances here. I think you touched on it. Eva Quilligan, I know we've been critical in earlier episodes this season, but I mean, stood up magnificently. Dave McNerney, sensational. Thought was a worthy man in the match performance. You see all you want about Tony Kelly, Peter Duggan, but they contributed 4 points down the stretch. Shane O'Donnell giving Hugh Lawler massive problems inside. I suppose, Rory, just in terms of these performances, I mean, Brian Loden would be quick to point out there's scope to improve, but I think if these guys are completely on form here, Clare, a real live threat for this All Ireland final.
Well, Aidan McCarthy as well is another guy I would not have started, and we criticised management, and probably rightfully so. Look, they deserve criticism for the Munster final, but they did get the decisions right here. Like Aidan McCarthy, who was dropped after his Munster final performance, like, they obviously saw something, you know, in him in training, gave him another go, and by did he respond? Like, talk about how important free taking is, and it was a tricky breeze there, and to nail 9 out of 9. And not all of them easy, like 2 out under the Cusick stand there at crucial stages of the game. And when you see how TJ was kind of struggling with the conditions and the breeze, like, it just shows how well he did that day. And he chipped in with 2 points from play as well, you know, when Clare weren't going well. He really stood up. David Fitzgerald, for me, has been struggling with form since the league. It just interesting, like, you presume Clare are going to have to, I think they're going to have to start Ryan Taylor in the final, you know, to counter Cork's pace in around the middle third. And he's good to track back and everything like that. And you'd wonder, as David Fitzgerald, it would be unbelievable if somebody said that after the league, that David Fitzgerald wouldn't start if Clare got to an All-Ireland final if he was fit. But just looking around at the rest of the team, like Colin Malone, who hadn't the greatest game, but he's been, you know, I don't think you can drop Colin Malone. He's, you know, warrior servant there, and he'll, you know, you're going to get a level of performance from Malone. So if you're looking at who's going to miss out, David Fitzgerald at the minute looks like the unlikely one, or likely one, whatever you want to say about it. But because I would be putting Ryan Taylor in there, another 2 weeks training. He looked fresh, looked fit. Yeah, I think we need him to counter Cork's middle third.
He got to the pitch of the game very, very, very quickly for a guy like that, you know, that hasn't got game time under his belt. And I think it's, for Lohan, it's ideal, really. They've dug out the win. They're into the final now. All the hype will be on will be on the other side, will be on Cork. Most people will be fancying them. And you're coming in, he's got the stick to beat him with how poor they were in the first half. A few things to tweak, but yeah, I'd like that final is by no means a gimme. Like that's very 50-50, and both teams will fancy that. So I think it's an ideal scenario for Lohan.
And there's no excuses either. As you said, they're coming in the right way to come in, having stuff to work on and under the radar. Yeah. And they have a full deck to pick from. Like I know Shane O'Donnell had a nasty finger injury, but I saw there was an interview with him the other day, and he says he'll be fine to go. I think he's a couple of stitches in his finger, but he's good to go. So that was the only worry. Like, so unless something happens between now and then in training, like it's rare you get to, and both counties really are coming in there with a full deck to pick from. You know, Cork's early injury worries have all cleared up, so I don't think there's going to be any excuses from either side here.
I suppose, guys, before we go here, and it's an incredible achievement for Clare. I mean, their first semi-final win in 4 attempts here, Ruairi, as well. Can't be underestimated the psychological effect of that going into a final. But I suppose, James, closing on Kilkenny, and we'll do the same with Limerick here, but I mean, I don't know, it's very kind of close to the bone in terms of season elimination last weekend, but David Heraghty's interview, I think, with Kilkenny people was fairly significant. He reckoned that there would be several retirements. Is one of them going to be a certain TJ Reid?
I mean, he did seem to be hanging around a bit on the pitch after he had his kids on. Looked to me to be a guy that was taking it in. Obviously, I don't know whether he's work-wise and stuff. I think obviously fitness. He's still very fit, so he could come back next year. But he looked to me like a guy that might be considering all right. Yeah, and you look around as well, like Walsh and Fogarty came on. They'd probably be 2 other guys that you might think may not be back next year. And you're looking from a Kilkenny perspective that's they're losing a lot of leaders there. Where's the leadership for next year? If the three, they're three big. I know obviously Fogarty and Wally Walsh haven't been starting but they're still they fill that leadership role in the dressing room. So I don't know. Yeah, if you were to pin me to it, I wouldn't be at all surprised if we don't see TJ back next year.
No, as I say, it's a bit close to the bone at the moment, but given those comments, I think, with David Heraghty's kind of links with Kilkenny, I thought it was a pretty significant statement. I suppose massive congratulations to Clare. Commiserations to Kilkenny. I think they'll have an awful lot of soul searching to do this winter time. And we'll maybe move on, guys, to Sunday. The game in Croke Park on Sunday did resemble an All Ireland hurling final for all intents and purposes. The atmosphere around Houston Station with the Limerick Cork fans coming in was just incredible. And the game to match here, James. I mean, congratulations first off. Must be cock a hoop with that performance, but well done. But I mean, what are your stand-up moments from this epic victory for Cork over reigning champions Limerick?
You said it there, Mark, that it was just first of all, it was a privilege to be there on Sunday. In that, I've been to All Ireland finals before, seeing Cork win All Ireland finals in Croke Park, but there was just something special about the atmosphere in there on Sunday. Even beforehand, there was just an energy about the place that I couldn't really describe. Like that, it just, you sensed something was going to be happening. I said it to you there during the week. The only kind of comparable game that I'd been there in Croke Park for was the Kilkenny Tip game in 2010, where you felt that there was something in the air. And obviously in Kilkenny, we're going for 5 in a row. Back then, Tip had put them to the pin of their collar in the previous All Ireland final, and you just felt something in the air, and it felt like that on Sunday. But what Cork had done to Limerick and Páirc Uí Chaoimh, there was just, and full house. I think they said it was the first full house for a semi-final. A fairly even split on the fans, I would have thought, inside in Croke Park. The atmosphere was just electric, and the game was chaotic and just brilliant from minute 1 to minute 75. You were wondering kind of beforehand how Cork would approach the game. Obviously in the game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, they went very direct. They targeted Limerick's half backline with Hannon and Burns, and Limerick would have known, no disrespect to Offaly and Dublin, but Limerick would have known that they're probably going to be playing Cork in the semi-final, so you can be sure that Kinnerk and Kiley would have had a good look at Cork since the Munster final. And so that was the intriguing kind of plot for me beforehand, was how Cork would approach this. But they went very similar again, and they went very direct, and they went right down on attacking Limerick's half backline. But it was just the movement and the energy levels that they brought was it was non-stop all game. Barrett and Harnedy were making these runs laterally across, and both of them seemed to be pretty much in tandem with each other. And Limerick didn't know, like anytime they moved, they were creating space for Fitzgibbon coming onto it. You had Hayes and Connolly then coming back, picking up breaks. Hayes then was also with Harnley breaking ball down on the Burn side, and yeah, they had Limerick in all sorts of trouble. And the other thing they did as well is that they isolated Hayes from the proceedings. I think he only got like 5 touches in the whole game. He didn't really know whether to stick or twist with Dalton, kind of an unselfish kind of task in that he took himself out of the game really to take Hayes out of the game. Hayes didn't know like whether to track him, whether to drop back into the space. And then Dalton is very dangerous in that you can't really leave him free, because if you leave him as a free man, he's got a monstrous pocket of ball, so he can knock it over from distance. Yeah, I was just very surprised that it took Kylie and Kinnerk 55 minutes, I think, when they made the switch from with Hannon and get Hayes into centre to regain more control. But it was just that movement. It was the movement from the likes of Barrett, Harnedy, and Fitzgibbon, and Hayes and Connolly that was the most impressive for me for Cork. I just thought that they were running all day, and they caused Limerick all sorts of problems.
Yeah, Rory, get you in here. Get your thoughts on this Cork performance.
Oh, look, it was an incredible game. I went back up on Sunday and just delighted I did, because I don't know what it would have been like watching it as a Cork or a Limerick fan, but as a neutral, it was an incredible game to watch. Look, the Cork, as James said, the energy and pace they brought to it. And it was very interesting all week or 2 weeks in the lead up to the game. Any player from the Cork squad that was being interviewed was saying, well, what worked the last day, Limerick are so shrewd, they'll have that fixed, so we're going to try, we've been working on something else and we'll try and bring something different to the game. And then they just hit them exactly what worked the last time. And it worked again. Yeah, look, I think Pat Ryan's a very shrewd operator, and he's shown that, and worked a treat. Look, you have to play to your strengths, and if your strengths are pace and a half forward line against a half back line that have been, looking slower than they have been, especially, let's say, Burns and Hannon have been, even though they were excellent in the Munster final, they did show signs in the round robin in Munster, that they were maybe short legs, particularly down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and Cork went straight at that. And the joy they had, even just those two, Barrett alone, 3 points from play and set up loads more, and Harnedy 4 points from play. And for me, a guy that I didn't really, not saying I didn't rate him, but I didn't realise how good he was, Brian Hayes. Up until now, I wouldn't have seen him as being one of the major threats in the Cork team, but I thought he was superb, and just his aerial ability as well. Himself and Connolly are like the twin towers inside there, back in the day when Kerry used to put Donaghy inside and Walsh and the twin towers inside, they have that thread in there as well. So it means they can go long at any stage too. Yeah, the careful backline will have their hands full there, keeping an eye on Cork with Ferdinand. Not to mention Horgan inside as well for any ball that breaks. But yeah, look, I just thought, and there was a spell too, where Limerick reeled them in the second quarter and had it back to 2 points, and Cork kind of fans must have been thinking, our Cork players, what have we got to do here? Because they had kind of thrown the kitchen sink at Limerick in the first half, yet they were still behind. But instead of being maybe disheartened by it, they came out third quarter, all guns blazing again, and that was really where they won the match. That gap they opened up in the third quarter. Some of the scores they got as well. Even there, actually, I didn't mention Decky Dalton, but James was right. He got monster scores from the sideline at a time when, I think it was one of it was a just wide or a ball dropped short, and suddenly, it's like a 2 point swing because 5 seconds later the ball's over your own bar. Collins as well. Look, you mentioned him earlier, James. The save he made there, where Gillane, you could argue Gillane probably could have moved his feet with him coming out, but still the bravery he showed, made himself wide, took a bullet for the president, as they say, and. At that stage, if Limerick had got a goal then in that first half, in that second quarter when they were having a good spell, that just kind of showed how close, Limerick were, even though, as we said, Cork put in a huge performance. So yeah, look, it's going to be interesting now. I think that what's also one of the things that's happened during the year with Rob Downey going to centre back, and that was possibly with Kieran Joyce being injured as well at the time, but he's kind of shored up that whole back line. He's solid there. He's a presence. He sits a bit deeper than Joyce used to. It's made them that bit more solid. And if you were told at the start of the year when Cork were shipping goals left, right and centre that they'd play Limerick at Ireland semi-final in Croke Park and concede no goals, people would say, what are you talking about? But yeah, look, it's a small things like that. And if you can keep Limerick from scoring goals, you have that chance. And to score 128 as well, like they're massive 128 to win. It was an incredible game.
Both Downies are very good, actually. I thought, I think there was reading there, they had like 6 catches between them, and there was one there from Owen Downey, which he took over his head, falling backwards, which was an amazing catch. And another move, I thought that obviously O'Mahony was named at wing back and Joyce in midfield, but they made that switch, at Tyrone, and I thought Joyce did a very good job in keeping Hegarty quiet. Even the chance that Hegarty got for the goal that Collins made in the second half, that was another brilliant save that he made. And Joyce got a flick in, got a hook in on Gillan when he was on the ground. When it looked, I know Gillan did slip, but sure, it looked like for all intents and purposes it was going to be a goal. But he got a flick in there, and Cork. That was a massive turning point in that. Cork came out with the ball. Dalton was free so it looked like Limerick were going to get a goal. Dalton was free on the wing. The ball was knocked to him and he put it over the bar, so you think like there's a 4-point swing there straight away, and at that point that was about the 50th minute, was it, or 52nd minute or something, but the roar that went up around the stadium, you were kind of starting to think that at that point that maybe that Cork, that this might be their day. They refused to bend to Limerick, I suppose, is the best way that I put it. That they were just very, very defiant. And that third quarter, you mentioned it there, Rory. The first 10 shots that they hit, when they came out after half time, they went over the bar. They outscored Limerick 13 points to 5 in that quarter, and that was the winning of the game. Really, they were able to keep Limerick at bay for the last quarter then. But super impressive, and again, we obviously mentioned Quilligan and in the previous game and Collins in this game, but there are 2 keepers that have had their criticisms. Not just even the shot stopping that the Collins did, his puck outs, who would be very, people in Cork would be very critical on his distribution. I think usually maybe it was 1 intercepted, but the rest he was just on the money with them, and the speed he was taking them at, because Limerick's efficiency was down. And now the way you're taking the puck outs is that if you take a strike on goal, you don't get a point, it goes wide, you're straight away, you're on the back foot because the ball is out straight away. You haven't got time to reset, and you're given a chance up at the other end. And anytime Limerick hit a wide, it was straight and play again. Straight and play for Collins. I thought I actually thought it was Hayes got man to match, but you could have easily given it to Collins as well, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and just the length of some of his puck outs, he can hit. Yeah. You hit Brian Hayes at 1 or 2, clear the whole half back line. So he's a massive. I don't know, he'll be going up to the Cooley Mountains this year. Might interfere with
and the thing with that length as well, Rory, is that it was forcing the Limerick half back line to kind of the turn as well. So it just created so much chaos back there, and the Cork's running and energy then just added to that. So yeah, but like I said at the start there, Mark, it was just a sense of occasion. It was a privilege to be there. Yeah, it was a privilege to be there. Great game.
No, absolutely. I suppose, Rory, like James touched on about the scoring proficiency of Limerick, particularly there was a few wides in the opening period. There was the 2 goal chances, but didn't feel at any given point here Limerick were anyway really under control in this game. It seemed to be that they seemed to be on the back foot for large stretches here.
Yeah, and we're as I said before, look, we were criticising the Clare management for things, and we've been praising the Limerick management for the last 16 years, but I just think they got things a bit wrong at the weekend in that younger guys that were kind of showing form, Adam English, Shane O'Brien in the Munster final, he went back again, and I know they tried and trusted has worked in the past, but for Kilkenny it didn't work. For Limerick it didn't work either here. Tom Morrissey, who's been an unbelievable player, possibly the standout wing forward in hurling the last 5 years, just hasn't looked at it a bit this year. He's looked a bit off, kind of maybe having these guys coming in the last 15 minutes, having your Tom Morrissey coming in, or like I suppose Flanagan had to start after the damage he did down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, but we're just kind of looking, and some of the guys, I suppose some of the younger lads who were saying, who were shooting the lights out and had been playing really well, probably wondering, like, what have I got to do to get into this team? Because even when they are on form, it's still kind of back to the 2018 bunch, more or less. So I think that was it. And also, as James said, they were slow to make changes as well. Like, the half-back line were in big trouble, like, and maybe drop Will O'Donoghue back a bit earlier. And also at the start, I was surprised the way Limerick more or less went like Keane Lynch played out at midfield. It was like they straight away went to 5 forwards, 2 inside, and normally they'd have a floating forward, but that floating forward was very deep. They were almost playing a sweeper at the start. And I just thought, like, All-Ireland semi-final, try and go at the team early. It was just, I hadn't really seen Limerick set up that defensively to begin a game. Maybe a small bit of, what had happened down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. They didn't want Cork to get an early goal or two, and get that crowd going. But overall, I was just a bit surprised with, on the line with Limerick, maybe with the starting team to begin with, and also with how slow they were to freshen things up. Because it must be said, when Adam English came in, and I know Shane O'Brien missed, he got a good point, then missed another one. Aidan O'Connor missed one, but they did bring a bit of energy to it, and that was the point where at a game where it started to swing back towards Limerick in the closing stages. And at least they were getting on and creating scoring chances as well. So you wonder if they had been on a bit earlier, maybe third quarter even, they might have been able to counter some of what Cork were doing at the other end. Yeah, it does show a small bit of promise for Limerick in the future, but the thing is, with Barry Nash missing as well, there is one guy with a bit of pace in the back line who would cover ground, and it just meant then they were on very thin ice there. Mike Casey, Sean Finn has not looked fully back to his full fitness. He does look a bit of a yard off it this year, compared to his brilliant best. In a way, Limerick were kind of going in there with a full back line that had been carrying injuries, and I just felt like maybe management should have maybe freshened things.
For Sean Finn particularly, it's been a very stop-start season. I mean, just getting back into the first team, hamstring goals against Cork in the round robin, now being forced then back a bit earlier than anticipated. I think the Barry Nash injury was the one that really broke the camel's back on Sunday. I think if you had him there, you might have had a few options on the bench, because that was the one thing I thought about Limerick management here. Half-back line struggling all ends up, but at no point did we consider Colin Coughlin or someone like that to come in, or even a Dan Morrissey go to 6, Richie English to 4, and try to mould it in that sort of way. I think it was last stand for quite a few of these leaders of this Limerick team here, James, and I think kind of looking into the off-season, it may be an interesting time here, particularly player personnel-wise, who will stay around to see if they can regain the All-Ireland, a bit like Kilkenny did back in 2011.
Yeah, they're going nowhere though. As in, if anyone thinks that Limerick are going to fall away, they're going, you reference Kilkenny or the other teams that have done 4 in a row, Kerry in the football. They've come back, and Limerick are still an All-Ireland or two, and this Limerick team, Cork threw everything at them, and it took an unbelievable performance from Cork, where they were almost pitch perfect across the board, and still Limerick were only 2 points behind them, and could very easily the Limerick bench had a much bigger impact than the Cork bench. Kingston came on, Ufflin came on for Harnedy. They didn't really get, particularly Kingston, I was a bit disappointed, but he didn't get to the pitch of it at all, and actually he fumbled. His touch seemed to be a bit off. The last 10 minutes, I know obviously there were a couple of goal chances, and Barrett hit the post, and it came back to Horgan, and Craig pulled off a great save. But Limerick are right there, and one shout out I'd have to give for Limerick is that, was Aaron Gillan. I thought was, if you're handing out man of the matches, he was another contender that could have got man of the match. He was outstanding all game. He got he gets 6 from play and 4 frees. Could have had a goal or two as well.
Yeah.
So he was. I thought he had O'Donoghue and all sorts of. And I wouldn't say that O'Donoghue was poor. It's just that Gillan was outstanding, he could have easily got man of the match as well.
I suppose Ruairi, Limerick eliminating, it's been a fantastic. I know Kieran's not here tonight, but I think he would agree with me. It's been a fantastic 6 years here. If anyone associated with this Limerick team, they owe the county absolutely nothing, really. 5 All-Irelands in 6 years. And you've kind of pointed here, Rory, to a few of the young talent that came on and burst on the scene here in the last quarter, I suppose. Things to be optimistic about from a Limerick perspective here, but do you see any players here that might decide that this is the year to maybe walk away?
Well, the age profile is still quite young. Nicky Quaid is the only guy, approaching mid-30s. The rest of them are all even, around the 30, 31 mark is the oldest there. Kyle Hayes still only 26 or 7, it's hard to believe, So, yeah, look, it's, I don't see any retirements, to be honest, this year. I'd say there's another year in all of them. And maybe just coming back like the Dublin footballers did, just having the year reassess things, shake things up a small bit. I think as well the Munster final, the half-back line playing so well in the Munster final, if they'd been in trouble then, in that game, it would have, Kylie and Cork would have had to act. But the fact they came through that game, having shut down the Clare half forward line, probably didn't help in the long run, because they were still in trouble against Cork when it came to it. But yeah, no, that they're definitely and do you know what Limerick has done? They have really upped the standard in Munster in particular. Like, think of even maybe 2019, 2020, kind of during the COVID years, Limerick were drubbing teams, but the teams in Munster raised their game. Clare, Cork have had to come up to that level. And I think now there is a big gulf because of that, because of having Limerick inside and around Robin and knowing the level you have to be at, compared to in Leinster, where you can kind of, Kilkenny know that they can, for example, draw with Carlow and still qualify, So there is like a thing where you have to be at the pitch of your game. And just, I think that whole, for Clare's point of view anyway, just being battle hardened from those games, playing Limerick twice and so on, like, it does give you a way better preparation than what Kilkenny would have had going in. So look, in fairness, that's the biggest compliment I can give, is they have brought up the whole standard, because everybody else has had to reach the level they're at. And look, we had an unbelievably thrilling game, and I don't know how many thrillers we've had with Limerick over the years, but when you think back to all the top games of the last few years, you've Limerick Cork game, both of them with the Munster final 2 years ago. Like, Limerick have featured in almost all of these cracking games.
James, before we go, don't we have to kind of call out Patrick Horgan reaching that 700 point mark? I mean, what an incredible feat for an outstanding player of his generation. I suppose, get your thoughts.
Funny enough, I thought it was actually in the first. He didn't score in the first half on Sunday, and he missed a free from the 21-yard line as well. I thought he was, at half time you were thinking he might actually, could they actually take him off? But in the second half he did. He chipped in with I think he got 3 frees and he's two from play. But yeah, he's been an unbelievable servant for Cork down through the years, and particularly because he's been operating on teams that haven't been very successful. He's probably a bit unlucky in that he just finished, when he was starting the that team, that last one, the All Ireland, were breaking up, and he's been, I suppose, not 2 All Ireland final appearances, or 3 if you count the replay, I suppose. So he'd be a guy, you don't get everything you deserve in sport, but he'd be a guy that you'd like to see end his career with that Celtic Cross. But I'm sure Clare will have a lot to say about that, But he has, he's been a great servant for Cork, altogether.
Yeah, Rory, a few words about Patrick Horgan. Amazing feat there over the weekend. Same alongside TJ Reid as well. I mean, he's breached the 700 point mark as well. 2 phenomenal athletes and great servants to their counties.
Yeah, it is, and it's the longevity of their careers as well. And for a long time, Patrick Horgan was going out where he was being the man targeted, putting their best man marker on him, and yet he was still scoring, and still even for a few years where Cork didn't have a great set of forwards next to him. Now he has that as well, and I suppose he's kind of starting that there's less pressure on him now in games, and that kind of helps him as well. Yeah, I was wondering when he did miss that free, James, was it going through his head? Was he counting up scores before they happened? Like that golfer who's counting that putt before it's in. But
they nearly got caught then with a free. There was a free late on when Dalton had already been taken off, and Horgan was just, I think his number had gone up, so he had to go, like, because we were sitting there in the stand going, sure, like, just stay on for the free, and at the next dead ball, which would be whether it goes wide or over, then you're off. Like, but both Horgan and Dalton were gone off the pitch then, so it was Coleman who took it, and I think it was at a time where there was the 2 points are in it, and every score was vital, and he dropped it short.
And they're the things you laugh about now when you win, but if they had lost by a point, there'd be serious questions asked over that.
Yeah. But I was surprised with that, actually, because Connolly takes the frees for Blackrock, so he could have come back and had a go at it. But as you said, it was grand when you win. You can look back at it now and kind of smile about it. But had it gone the other way and Limerick gone up the pitch and and scored a goal or something, you'd be fairly annoyed about it.
Yeah, be an awkward video review, that for sure, but not to be anyway. I think Cork were deserving winners on the day, lads, and fair play to them, and fair play to Limerick as well. They relinquished the crown, but they went down fighting, didn't they? Really, and I think, to be fair, as you say, James, they're still around, and they'll give it a good tilt next season.
I suppose the only thing would be is that from Limerick, from the departures wise, what if there's changes in the management team. And obviously we won't be speculating on that now, but listening to Kylie's interviews, he and you could be reading too much into it as well. But he was saying that they'll be back, but he never said we'll be back. And
he was all but announcing it, wasn't he, James? There was hints of.
I don't know. Yeah, it just seemed to me. It seemed to me that I'm not sure if he'll be back, and if he wasn't back, how would that change the dynamic there? I don't know. Yeah, maybe the likes of Hannon, if Kyle isn't back next year, would they call it quits? I don't know. But he did seem to me to be. I don't know. The use of his language just seemed to me that maybe he may not be back, but we'll see. Yeah. But if he's not back, and it's like obviously the commitment that goes into it, and he's on the go from the seniors, the under 21s. Was involved as selector back, when John Allen was there. I think he was with intermediates before that, so he's on the go a long time. So if he does decide that this is the time to go, then he's been what a servant he has been for Limerick.
Like, it was an emotional interview. I thought straight after it. I mean, you're 5 in a row dashed. Thought it was significant to see like the JP McManus's, Joe McKenna's coming down from the stands to kind of console him afterwards. I thought that was a big kind of statement, really, to be fair. Am I reading a little bit too much into it? We'll see in the next few weeks. But he has stepped away from the Abbey CBS as vice principal. There is speculation here in terms of maybe potential politician career if a general election does arise. So, I mean, I think that's going to be an interesting watch. I think more managerially wise and backroom staff wise, what the personnel changes may be for Limerick might be the intriguing kind of storyline there, but all to be revealed in the coming months. I suppose, guys, before we leave, there was 2 curtain raisers to these 2 games. The All Ireland Camogie quarterfinals, Ruairi. I know we'd kind of predicted Waterford and also Kilkenny. How wrong could we be, to be fair? But it has brought up a great story in the Dublin Camogie team. I know Adrian Sullivan very well, and he worked with that Camogie team for many a year and really kind of identified the potential of him, and really came to fruition with a 113-12 point win over Kilkenny. I suppose great story for Camogie, really, that Dublin are emerging here into a last 4 meeting against Cork.
Yeah, because look, it was becoming a Kilkenny Cork Galway plus one more, but now we're going to have Dublin in there and Tipperary, so it's changed things up. We pointed out how Dublin ran Kilkenny very close in the Leinster final in the Camogie, and they probably knew that it wasn't going to take a bit, just a small bit more to get over the line. And they had Aisling O'Neill, who came back serious injury and was her first game. In fact, she hadn't even done contact during the week, according to interviews with her manager, Jerry McQuaid, and she got 2 points from play. Then also you had Sinead Wilde, who ended up at man of the match, who was playing with a broken bone in her hand, and she got the all-important goal. Yeah, Kilkenny have had a big turnover as well, not just management this year with Downing stepping aside, but also, as you mentioned, Denise Gall, and it just sometimes it can take a year or two to adjust, and it's just unusual not to see them there in the semi-final. So yeah, all credit to Dublin, and now we have a situation where you have Tipperary, who are up against Galway in the semi-final, and Dublin against Cork, and you would be thinking Tipperary here have shown all the form. Yeah, you'd fancy them maybe against the Galway team that are shipped a heavy beating against Cork, but I suppose like they did up it against Waterford, they did trouble Waterford at times, and find themselves back into the semi-final. So I think after that Cork game, Galway, Murray would have set the Galway team down and just kind of readjust things. They're still in knockout competition, knockout from now on. 2 games to an Ireland final, and look, they did definitely deserve their win over Waterford. Just interesting with Waterford, like Beth Carton, as we know, as she's Camogie Player of the Year last year, and I just find like with a forward like that, like she's their best striker of ball, playing her midfield, having her that bit away from goals, I thought it does reduce the scoring power for Waterford. Like, I always find their best position is centre forward, so I just found that Jerry Wallace, the Cork man, is the Waterford manager this year. Just maybe they were lacking in midfield and he had to bring her back there. But for me anyway, I'd like to have my best striker for ball up in the forward line. But look, all credit to Galway and especially Dublin. And nobody at the start of the year would have tipped Dublin for an All-Ireland semi-final. Only themselves, really. And it just showed like the belief that they've had. And to take out Kilkenny in an All-Ireland quarter-final is a great feat. So well done to Dublin.
Not bad year for Kilkenny. Nothing seems to have gone right for them.
It's been a continuation for Kilkenny.
They still have their football team, though.
They still have the football team.
Still have their football team.
But it does bring up a good point about Kilkenny Camogie. The last 2 years has been utterly disappointing. Like, I think the Denise Gall absence particularly is really glaring. I mean, 9 points from play here, guys, on Saturday. Really is not getting the job done in an All-Ireland semi-final. And just looking around, the leadership-wise on the pitch, didn't seem to be there. And I think, to be perfectly fair to Dublin,
there's a similar pattern really to with the men, in that they were on top early on, and again, like that, the stronger finish was by Dublin, and they didn't have any answers to it. So I don't know. Yeah, a county that you'd always just associate that they turn up and they'll die with their boots on. That it's just and you could say the same as well with their minor team as well. Losing the way they lost that final to Tip in the minors. It's worrying times for them.
Yeah, because Aisling Maher as well from Dublin. It's a great story there as well, chipping in with 7 points, definition of leadership, along with Wild. There's a very astute backroom staff there, along with McQuaid as well. I think it's a great story for Camogie, really, for Dublin. And to be fair to Galway, I think it was a decent performance, given where they were at after the Cork trouncing in the round robin. I think O'Donoghue was sensational, and maybe, officiating wise, talking to a few locals up here, didn't feel the officiating went with Galway throughout. So they were quite happy to get out of Croke Park with a win anyway. And they'll have no fear of facing Tipperary, who have their own hoodoos, particularly in a semi-final. Given last year's performance, I think they're going to have to rectify that. So, it's two very exciting semi-finals here, guys. Cork and Dublin, and also Tip and Galway.
Sorry, Mark, they have a 3-week break. They're not playing again until the 27th of July. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So plenty, a lot can happen in 3 weeks as well. So maybe Galway might continue on their upward trend by the time we get to semi-final.
Yeah, no, I think it's very seasoned fine in here in Galway, particularly this Camogie team. There's plenty of talent in this squad. I know there's one or two that have basically, withdrawn from the panel, but there is talent in abundance here in Galway Camogie, and I think they're, as you say, 3 weeks now to regroup and really get a performance right against Tipperary. And look, Cork have been the standard bearer in Camogie this season, really. And look, I think Galway coming in here pretty much as a dark horse, really, to really kind of put it up to any of them. So, look, I think that'll be intriguing. UPMC, Nolan Park as well. It'll be a fantastic day on the 27th. I suppose, guys, before we go, what's the hype like in both Clare and Cork? I know we'll have the preview next week, but I'd say, talking to a few lads down in Cork and Clare, it's already started down in Milltown Malbay and Willie Clancy, and I'd say the same down in Cork as well, James.
Absolutely, yeah. The demand for tickets is fairly high anyway. So there's no sign of them for loving our money. So yeah, it's just it's obviously early yet, but it'll build now through next week. But looking forward to it, yeah. And I'm sure Clare the same as well. Yeah, it's good to be back in the final.
Yeah, how are things in the bridge anyway, Ruairi?
Oh yeah, great to be back in the final. And yeah, the ticket thing, one small thing actually that's annoyed me is all these clubs around the country raffling tickets off and trying to make a quick buck out of it. Like I always assumed that every club got tickets because there might be somebody from that county living up there and in the club. They genuinely filter back through cousins and the whole lot. But now it's like, it's just like if you're intent for all these competitions, you'd be paying 200 quid, but you mightn't get any ticket. Like, so yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me, And then there's even both counties. Clare are doing a lunch for €300 for a brunch, I think, and it gets you a ticket for the match. And so there you have, your businessmen who maybe haven't gone to a match all year and turn up with 300 quid, and they've probably middle of the Hogan. Like, so look, it's just maybe something I think the GA maybe need to tighten up around. We know a massive percentage go to sponsors and that already, but they should try and get as many tickets down to the genuine grassroots fans in both counties through the clubs is probably the best way to go about things. And that's, it seems that when it comes to All Ireland final, the clubs get even less tickets than they would for a semi-final, so or for a Munster final, despite double the capacity. So yeah, it's just one of those baffling things. And every time I see a Mahara Felt or somebody like that putting up 2 All Ireland hurling final tickets, it just it doesn't sit well with me.
That kind of stuff takes, like, you want as many from the competing counties there because just for the atmosphere as well, So if it's diluted a bit, it takes away from it. Yeah, but. Yeah, I suppose we'll see what happens there on the ticket front.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fine balance as well because guys from Westmeath or Longford, and it's an annual pilgrimage to All Ireland hurling final.
Yeah.
Historians of the game, the lads writing, the annuals in terms of games. Of knew a guy who'd gone to the last 55 of them, from Longford, great guy. So look, I think there's that fine balance as well, but you'd want tickets to the right people, the guys that have, and women and kids that have gone to the games through thick and thin this year for both counties. But, it's sure, even James, for yourselves down in Cork, like the number of GA clubs down there trying to distribute that to clubhouses, next week is going to be absolute madness altogether. It's like maybe winning a lottery before trying to win an All-Ireland, taking the club draw, I suppose.
But going there as well, Mark, any big hurling man from, let's say, a Westmeath or Longford, as you said, like who they're more entitled almost to be there than, let's say, somebody from Clare or Cork who doesn't have any real interest but just wants to be there for the final. You know what I mean? You've a lot of these people as well who, when it's a thing to get to say they have a ticket and all that they'll jump on board.
Yeah, there's always a bandwagon, I suppose. Yeah. But you'll always get that, really, I suppose. But you're right, Mark. I remember we used to bump into 4 lads who used to come down from Armagh for every hurling final. They weren't into the football at all. They were just into the hurling, and they were there every year at every All-Ireland final. So you do have pockets where they will go no matter what team is in there.
No, and the good news is this year they'll all be shooting for the underdog, which will be Clare. So
shot fired already. Not even the week of it. But yeah, lads, we'll have the big preview next week anyway of the big game. I suppose that'll be the main focus next week, guys. Again, many thanks, James, for coming on. And Rory, as always. We'll have Kieran back next week as well. But I suppose enjoy the weekend, the camp before the storm, I suppose, guys. And we'll chat next week.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.